You're watching round 9 of the 2001 Shell Championship Series. This is the VIP Pet Foods Queensland 500, and this is Stephen Johnson, Junior Johnson, and this is Mark Skaife, the championship leader. These are the two guys battling it out at the top of the table, and they are battling it out for honours here in the Queensland 500. This is a fascinating battle, and they are carving their way through the field. They have just put John Cleland in 11th position down a lap, so there is only 10 cars on the lead lap now. This is a fierce battle, and Johnson just looks in the rear view mirror to just check how close Skaife is. Precisely 1.2 seconds behind.
Russell Ingall is flying too in the Castrol Commodore. He's just set the fastest lap of the race on lap 65, a 1:11.62. That was about 5 laps ago. So Ingall's really pushing hard in the Castrol car. The level of competition amongst this top 10 is quite phenomenal. One little slip from any of these guys would be catastrophic. Look how hard. Oh, little lock brake there from Johnson as he turns through turn 4 on the infield section. Here is Russell Ingall right up behind Stokel.
Yeah, he's currently in 6th position, and he can easily make up a few positions in very quick time. Here goes
the battle for 5th, Matt Neal.
Yeah.
And here comes Ritter.
Now Stokel on the inside.
Ritter's car, yeah. Ritter's Stokel machine. And Ingall up behind him. So Matt Neal just gives him a bit of room. And this is an absorbing battle between the Shell Ford and the Castrol car. They're fighting over 5th place. Paul Stokel having taken over the car from Greg Ritter, who did a great opening stint. Look at this, up the inside goes Russell Ingall. He's going to get squeezed on the exit to turn 5, but a nice clean move. Stokel gives him room. And so Russell Ingall now up into the top 5.
Now, someone who knows what it's like to be a part of that Shell Helix team and drive for the Queensland-based team is Cameron McLean, who unfortunately did not start in this race today. Now, Cameron, we've heard all kinds of rumours about legal disputes and various things. What's the story?
Well, unfortunately, Diffie, most of them are true. There's been a court injunction put on the car for this meeting, and there's some legal matters we've got to sort out next week between Paragon Motorsport and Greenfield Mowers, but yeah, we'll sort that out and hopefully be fighting on for the rest of the year.
So fingers crossed we'll see you at Bathurst.
I will be there one way or the other.
That's good. You're too good a driver not to be seen there. What do you make of this race so far, Cameron? You've been in this race the last couple of years. It's a tough event.
It is a tough event, and I think you can see how the guys with the guys like the Shell Helix team and FTR out, but the Shell Helix team with the 2 drivers that are running in the series all the time have seemed to have a bit of an advantage over the guys that have got the one-off drivers. And that really, in this championship now, how it's so competitive, that's making the difference, I think.
Incredible.
What's it like to drive around in Cameron with the bumps and that? With, by comparison to how it was, say, 2 years ago, there were hardly any bumps here.
The track is certainly changing down to the braking area in turn 3 and the braking area in turn 1. There is more and more bumps. Each year it gets worse and worse. And quite a hard setup in this car is good for the turn 1 and turn 2, but the harder you make the car and the stiffer, the worse it becomes over the bumps. So it's really a catch-22.
Incredible fight here. 1.3 seconds now, the gap between race leader Stephen Johnson and Mark Skaife. Their last lap times incredibly close. A 1:12.39 for Johnson, a 1:12.33 for Skaife. So we said they were swapping lap times within hundredths of a second of each other. That's what it is. And this is maximum pressure driving for both these guys. Mark Skaife, headlights on to warn the slower traffic he's coming through. Just up behind the Brock Owen machine as they come onto the pit straight once again. So you can imagine the tension in the pits. These two teams, the top Holden team and the top Ford team in the championship, fighting tooth and nail here. 360 points on offer, a massive haul.
It's
for
great
someone who can succeed.
Great for Steve. He's really got the bit between his teeth this year. And what's going on now?
Well, I'm not sure if this is a scheduled stop. John Cleland at the wheel, who's flown in for the race. He was running in 12th place, but now he's trickling down pit lane, so hopefully not a terminal problem for the Aussie Male Ford. Those guys have been having a great opening stint.
Well, they've done pads and driver change in the field and that, so I don't know.
This is unscheduled, definitely unscheduled.
Bonnets up.
I've just had a word to team boss Kim Jones. They believe it's a loose, in fact, that's what it is. They have just put, one of the spark plug cables or leads, looks like it came off the car. They very quickly adjusted it. It seemed to run back on 8 cylinders immediately, and John Cleland was gone.
Well, hopefully something so simple can be fixed by a flick of the wrist. We saw this car go up in flames on Darwin's Hidden Valley circuit when a 20-cent part, just the clip on a fuel rail broke and pumped fuel all over the car. It was a massive fire. So once again, just a simple component, slowing them down. But fortunately, not nearly as dramatic as the Darwin incident.
If it was a plug lead off, the old mechanic's a bit brave, isn't he? With the power these city eyes put out,
Wow.
it would revolve your head, eyes in your head.
Now this battle, it's come down under 1 second now. Mark Skaife pushing Junior Johnson hard. It's 0.8 of a second last time around. You don't need the stopwatch. You can see it's a visual gap now. And it's very, very close between Stephen Johnson and Mark Skaife. Problems here. I think it might be
Neil
Rick Bates.
Rick Bates.
Rick Bates at the wheel. So stuck right up to the axles in the kitty litter. Paul Wheel car comes into pit lane.
Safety car.
Really? These guys are currently sitting in 4th position. You can see Paul Wheel there snap the door open. Tim Lay will hop out of the K&J Radiators car.
Well, that's handy for him because the old safety car's just come out, so he won't lose so much ground.
77 of 161. We're almost halfway through the VIP Pet Foods Queensland 500 safety car entering the circuit for the second time in this 500-kilometre race. The last time we saw it on the circuit was for when Rod Nash went off the circuit. They cleaned up his car and Neil Crompton, Craig Lowndes' car when that went off at the end of the main straight. So the second time this will bunch them up, and this will highlight the intense battle between Stephen Johnson and Mark Skaife at the front of this Queensland 500 field. There they are, right up behind the pace car. And the field will all bunch together. It is quite an intriguing race. Mazira, Longhurst, they still sit in the top 3 from Russell Ingall, who is on the way forward. And Ritter and Stokel in the second Shell Helix Ford. They are extremely well placed in the top 5. So too the second Castrol Caravana, Macro and Luke Youlden. Further back in those positions, look to the bottom. There's 16th, Leanne Ferrier, Paul Dumbrell. They're just 1 lap down, but battling away. More on your home of motorsport in a moment.
Almost halfway through the Queensland 500, and Mark Skaife on the resumption from the safety car has stuck through on the inside of Stephen Johnson. So the championship leader and defending champion has now put himself in a position to run away from the field again. But reminding you, there are 3 events still to go in the championship. Double points on offer this weekend. Longhurst in 3rd place. So HRT in very, very strong shape at the moment. But what a move from Skaife. He was ready to pounce, and Johnson could do very little about it.
That was a brilliant move on Skaife's behalf. I reckon he's driving better this year than ever before. That was hot, you reckon, Lee?
So many, yeah, true, Baz. So many times you see people not quick enough from the word go after it. Here is the replay. This is once everything goes green. Now Skaife tucks in behind for turn 1. It's quite a good run up to turn 2, but watch him. He's right on the back of the Shell Helix Ford. Stephen Johnson knew he was there, but watch Skaife turns it in tight and then gets on the gas again. Under brakes into turn 2, and a very, very sophisticated move.
Yeah, and it's looking pretty strong for HRT. That Shell Ford is fighting a lone hand up there at the moment, because you've got Skaife in first, Johnson in the Ford in second, Longhurst in the second of the Holden Racing Team Commodores. Then it's Russell Ingall in the Castrol car, who has really been able to capitalise on that safety car. He was some 40 seconds down on the race leader, and now that's made up a lot of track position. There he goes there. So Russell Ingall flying in the Castrol car. Paul Stokel still in 5th in the Shell Ford. Simon Wills in the Cat car. Whoa! Contact between Tony Longhurst and Junior Johnson. What a dramatic moment, going back to full racing. It looked like Longhurst was trying to sneak up the inside of the 17 car, and there was contact between the 2 of them. Hopefully it hasn't been heavy enough to do any damage.
Well, that may have been a fairly ambitious move. We'll hope to get a replay of that and take a look at that. There's Marcus Ambrose in the Pertec 40, some 2 laps down. Look at this bunch here. Greg Murphy caught in the middle of that. So too Paul Stokel. Here's your Shell Helix race score as they splash across the line. We know the top 3. Then it's Ingall on the surge from Simon Wills, who's in the Cat Ford in 5th. Greg Murphy from Paul Stokel in the top 7. Jeff Brabham behind the wheel. Or is it still Stephen Ellery? No, Stephen Ellery is still going on in the early part of this race. And then it's the combination of the young drivers, Adam Macro and Luke Youlden.
Well, Jeff Brabham did the opening stint for the Super Chief Autos team. Now Ellery on board. It's absorbing contest. Certainly the most thrilling Queensland 500 we've seen of the 3 held so far. Under brakes. Greg Murphy in the Kmart car, the sole surviving Kmart machine after the failure of the other car on the start line. So the order now, Scaife, 1.2 seconds up the road from Stephen Johnson, who just had a tangle with the second of the Holden Racing Team cars. Have a look at this on the Shell Helix replay. Boof.
He did a good job to gather that up, Stephen
Sure
Johnson.
did. Big hard hit for the
really did.
right front wheel of Longhurst's car. Not quite sure of the contact point with the Shell car. There'll be nervous moments for the Holden Racing Team, particularly when you saw what happened to Mark Larkham's car as a result of a similar contact with Larry Perkins early in the race.
Paul Wheel in the K&J Thermal car just sneaks up the inside of Dean Canto, and the number 6 FTR car moves up into position 10, but is a lap down on the front runners.
For all the fans in New Zealand, we know there's plenty of them. The V8 Supercar watching on TV1. I can tell you that Angus Fogg in the Team Kiwi car, he and Jason Richards are into the top 15. Good effort so far for the Kiwis. 14th position at the moment for Fogg. And it shows a good, strong, consistent run here, and you can end up in the top 10.
And not only our viewers, Mark, in Kiwi land in New Zealand, it's also going right around the world, and we also welcome our viewers via the Speed Vision Network in the United States. Hope you're enjoying the action from the Queensland 500 here at Willowbank in Queensland. And the weather has remained favourable for the race. It was looking pretty questionable this morning. And of course, later tonight on your home of motorsport, it's been a long summer break in the Northern Hemisphere, but the 500s return at Brno for the Czech Republic GP. Join Bill and Barry and Greg Rust for that. We look forward to the next round of the Shell Championship Series, round 10 from Winton in Victoria. This is tight, look at this. That is the Holden Young Lions car getting pushed wide by Simon Wilson. Good forceful driving there as he goes through and tries to stay on the back of Greg Murphy.
1:12.67 for Mark Scaife, a 1:12.54 for Johnson. There's still not even a second in it, 0.95 of a second, an absorbing battle for the battle. And the lead of the Queensland 500 between the Shell team and the Holden Racing Team.
And Simon Wills has had to adapt very quickly because although he's the Konica champion, he became Konica champion in a Commodore. So he's had to switch very quickly back to learn how to drive a Ford.
Just got word from Tony Longhurst that there's no immediate problem with it after that contact there. Whether something develops, we'll have to wait and see. But in terms of trying to tell you, the viewers at home, where some of the drivers are where they are, well, I got a bit of a breakdown of the last round of pit stops. Those have done driver fuel tyres and pads, brake pads that is. The quickest was Greg Ritter at Paul Stokel on 28.2, 1/10 of a second behind Mark Scaife and the Radicic. Also a very quick stop to do all three things. Those who didn't fare so well, John Bauer, slow stop at 40 seconds, and Paul Morris at 46.3.
It's amazing how the complexion of this race has changed in the 2 years since its inception. In 1999, when Larry Perkins and Russell Ingall won it, it was a three-stop strategy. They stopped on lap 50, lap 79 and lap 110. Last season, Mark Scaife and Craig Lowndes stopped on lap 61 and 105 respectively, so they got through on a two-stop strategy. I've been down and had a word to the Paul Wheel team. They were the first to stop here today. They've stopped twice so far, and guess what? They've got to stop a third time before the end of the race.
Yeah, they came in early under that, I think it was the first safety car period. So that's put them out of sequence. Mark Scaife continues to lead 0.8 of a second. So Junior Johnson and Mark Scaife swapping fastest laps. Longhurst still in third, doing a great job at his first drive for the Holden Racing Team. Russell Ingall well in contention in fourth. Greg Murphy in fifth. Simon Wills, Stokel in the second of the Shell Fords, well placed in seventh. Stephen Ellery, Adam Macro in the second of the Castrol Commodore. So those two Perkins-prepared cars within the top 10. And Paul Wheel, of course, in the K&J machine, is in 10th place.
Longhurst is going good. Longhurst has been quickest for the last 3 laps.
You can see there, it's Rick Bates there. There's Team Kiwi. They've run off. Angus Fogg has had a bit of an excursion on the outside. It looks like we've turned 5. Just in front of John Clellan, who's working his way back after that team was so highly placed earlier. They dropped quite a bit of time. Clelland is now back in 18th position. And there is a bunch having a huge battle there. You can see the Valvoline car, the sole remaining Gary Rogers car, as we take a quick look at Stephen Ellery for just 2 positions further up. Paul Dumbrell, the 18-year-old Melbourne University student, is in the top 15. That's a good effort from him, teamed with Leanne Ferrier and their sister car. Not so fortunate today. Bargwana and Tanda out earlier after that massive contact with Cameron McLean.
Stephen Ellery in the Super Cheap Autos team, doing well, running inside the top 10. It's a competitive position on home soil This is a nominated test track for the Gold Coast-based operation. Jeff Brabham, the enormously experienced Australian international, coming on board as co-driver for this meeting and for, of course, the 1,000k race at Mount Panorama Bathurst.
Well, it's been a rather hectic day for some, and they're still enjoying it, while for others, it's over. And sadly, for our mate, our colleague, Neil Crompton, it was an early day, mate.
It was a very early day, Lee. Welcome back. I've come up here because it's safer.
No one will turn you around up here.
Please, nobody throw a full drink can at me.
Did he do a tyre or what?
I think so. Well, yeah, it's definitely exploded a tyre. Why it's exploded the tyre, I'm not sure. To begin with, I wasn't sure whether something had actually broken or the tyre, but they've had a look and the tyre's just shredded to pieces. And obviously it stemmed from the incident earlier on.
But they caught your attention, didn't they?
Oh, did it ever. I mean, when the thing first jumped out from underneath me, it was the last thing I was expecting. And I remember looking over my right shoulder and the concrete was coming up quick. But I haven't seen it, obviously, but the gravel must have grabbed it pretty well, because my earliest recollection of it was this is going to hurt.
What we couldn't understand from looking at the vision was when you came in for the stop to put the new tyres on, they didn't pull the damaged guard away from the wheel.
Yeah, well, like you would have a better view of that than me. I've got no idea what happened. I'm just in there, and once I get there all clear to go, it's time to go. So, you know, obviously you've got to leave it to others outside the car to make that decision. But they're not. They felt as though there wasn't anything obvious in the outer guard, so maybe something else was going on in the inner guard area.
Now, this is the Oz Email Falcon back in again, continuing problems for John Clelland, and this is really disheartening after Brad Jones put in such a solid effort to get them from outside the top 20 to inside the top 10 in his first stint. Now Clelland is back in again.
Just had a word to the team. John Clelland has radioed in. It is the same problem that appeared before. They believe it's electrical. They're checking all the lead points at the moment in the hope that they can cure it and get that V8 started once again.
That is hard luck for that team, who were struggling earlier in the weekend. And it looked like their weekend had turned around, and now it's slapped them back in the face again. John Clelland. He'll be back for Bathurst as well, as we take a look at the Pertec Ford Marcus Ambrose, how quickly fortunes can change. From pole position, he was on top of the world yesterday. He is now 2 laps in arrears and back in something like 21st position. Doing his best to try and regain those laps, but that is going to be a tough ask with less than 50% of this race remaining.
Sure is. It's been a tough weekend for a number of the crews. Neil, the Gibson Motorsport Falcon never really seemed to be right in the zone all weekend.
No, that's a spot-on observation, really, Mark. We just couldn't really get it in the sweet spot. Don't really know why, obviously, otherwise we would have. But we lost a lot of time in the first session Friday, and you know, in this game you can't afford to give your opposition any head start, and we did give them a head start, so that's frustrating. But no, we haven't really got the car working right here. It's the first time the team's been here with the Falcons, so we kind of expected, because I know from previous experience this can be a tricky track to set up for, and even the locals, the guys that are based here, found that it can be very peculiar as the temperature changes and the conditions on the circuit change, whether it's rubber or dust from the nearby mine or whatever, I don't know. But no, we didn't get the car 10 out of 10 at all. And I think that's probably the root of our difficulties. I mean, once you start to struggle, you know, you can't brake late enough because you can't turn quick enough, you can't get on the gas hard enough out of the corner to maintain a strong position, and then that makes you vulnerable, and then it's boxing gloves out.
Car 11, Russell Ingall powering on, still sitting in 4th position behind Longhurst, Johnson and Scaife. Just to update you too, that gap up front between Mark Scaife and the Holden Commodore is just less than a second. So Johnson is still staying with Scaife up front as we ride now with Russell Ingall.
Riding up in the same as the leaders. That Scaife just coming onto the pit straight now.
So plenty of motivating words. How important is that for you as a driver, Neil, just to get that reassurance and that constant, just, you know, positive feedback? Keep going, everything's good, hang in there, mate, they're not too far ahead.
Oh, I think it's very important, and it gives the driver an idea of what's going on. You can use it to pace yourself. You've got to try and dance a fine balance here between using the tyres and keeping an eye on the opposition. See, we're only 90 laps in, still an awful long way to go, so the last thing you want to do at the moment is overstep the mark. You just want to keep the lead in sight. Russell's, back in 4th there at the moment, so he's got the lead in sight. He's not an awful long way back in terms of margin, so that's actually a good spot to be.
Tell you what's interesting, though, too, looking at the speed of this Pertec Falcon with Marcus Ambrose on board. Plenty of speed, you know, just must be wondering what could have been if they hadn't had that disastrous pit stop.
When you think about it, the Queensland 500 hasn't been a particularly kind race to the Stone Brothers, and it's particularly the Pertec 4. Now take a close look at this on the race score. We're dwindling it down to now just the top 9 cars are on the lead lap. It is still the Scaife machine that leads the way. Ritter and Stokel, they've been one of the standouts today, sitting in 7th position, just ahead of the Super Cheap car of Ellery and Brabham. And it looks like Marcus Ambrose is slowing in the background, just behind the race score graphic there. We'll keep an eye on that. On the other side of this break, you're watching Network 10, your home of motorsport. This is the Queensland 500.
This update brought to you by Strathfield.
Well, if you had a point for laps led in this race, the safety car would probably take the honours. Stephen Richards turned around there by Paul Morris, driving under extreme duress. He has the flu and was later to head back to the pits himself for a little bit of R&R. Tough call, that one. And now, the Valvoline Cummins team. Garth Tander, big spin into the pits with damage as well. Now, the timing of pit stops was critical. The first round saw some extreme variations. Tough for Ambrose, a very long stop. That penalised him. Skyfleet, well, this wasn't a pit stop problem. It was simply a problem getting back in there after he went into the kitty litter. Radicic in with a pit stop, and it was a good one too. Very smooth change. Steve Johnson jumped into the car. And there is Paul Morris, penalised by the flu. Lots of liquid there, as you can see, being poured into him, and he may well get back in the seat again. Matt Neal behind the wheel right now. Bernard, stop-go penalty and some damage to the car. It's been a rough run for him after a pretty solid start from co-driver Matthew White. Now Philip Skyfleet officially out of the race after this problem. And then we saw John Clellan, not long after he jumped behind the wheel after a good solid start from Brad Jones. We saw a quick fix from the Aussie male team, and Cameron McConville and Rick Bates stuck on the side of the road.
Back to it, the number 1 HRT Commodore still leads the way. Mark Scaife, around about 0.8 of a second over Stephen Johnson, and a similar margin back to Tony Longhurst and Russell Ingall, around about 6 seconds, between 6 and 7 seconds behind the lead car. So Ingall trying to claw his way back. It's been a great drive by this guy, Stephen Johnson, currently 3rd in the Shell Championship Series, points 2nd in this race. There is your race leader.
Neil, can you believe how tough this battle for the lead is between these 3 cars? Watching these lap times, 1:12.48, 1:12.35, 12.2. The gap has just stayed at 0.8, 0.9 lap after lap after lap. Absolutely on the limit motoring.
Well, it's fantastic competitive motor racing between 2 top teams and very evenly matched drivers, and that's always terrific. I mean, when you're nearly 100 laps into an endurance race like this and you've got such a small margin between the first 3 or 4 guys, that's always good.
Commodore's looking very strong. We've got a Ford in 2nd place, and the next Ford is back in 6th. And the Commodores, as they've done here in the 2 previous Queensland 500s, looking very strong in endurance trim, particularly these blokes. They blew everyone else out of the water last year with superior tactics, great race speed. And it looks like they're doing it again in 2001 Scaife. But Johnson's not letting him go. It's still under a second. You're just talking hundredths of a second between these two in terms of their lap speed.
And while this race is extremely important for Mark Scaife and his title defence, Billy Woods is with the chairman of Avesco with some more important information.
Yes, as we approach 100 laps, it's time to get the thoughts of Chairman Tony. I have a feeling that for the next few years we'll be doing some more of these interviews, mate.
Yes, we will, Billy. Fantastic news today with the big press announcement that Avesco and Network 10 have signed a big new multi-million-dollar 5-year deal, and all the V8 supercar action will be live on Network 10 for the next 5 years, when we want it and how we want it. So it's a tremendous arrangement, the biggest deal ever written in Australian motorsport history. So we're very excited, and it's been a great 5-year partnership, and it's going to go for at least another 5.
Now, I know the schedule hasn't been released yet for 2002, but what can you tell us about the situation in Perth? It was rather controversial this year.
Yeah, well, look, right at the moment, for the first time in 26 years, we won't be going to Perth next year. We're very disappointed. The Western Australian Events Corp have seen fit to nearly look after every sport known to mankind except V8 supercars. And we urge all our fans in the West to get in touch with the Minister for Sport, the Minister for Tourism, and we've left the door open just that little bit to try and see if there's something we can do at Barbagallo. And there are one or two senior bureaucrats doing their best for us, but really, you know, it's only a few more days and that door is going to shut, and probably shut firmly. It's not what we want. We want to be back there. We know how many fans we've got in WA, but really, we've got to do something about the facilities and everything that goes with it. And if they can find millions and millions of dollars for rally, surely they can find something to get this fantastic show in WA.
Well, good luck to Perth fans. Queensland fans are getting a pretty good deal today. Thanks, Tony Cochran.
Cheers, all the best. Thanks, Bill.
They certainly are getting a good deal up here in the Sunshine State, because this is a fascinating battle up front. You've got three cars, three top-line cars going hard at it. Look at Tony Longhurst starting to apply the blowtorch now to Stephen Johnson.
Margin's actually getting a bit tighter now, and Ingle on the last lap. Lee was the fastest man with a 12.1. All of them will be trying to drive their cars as straight as they can, not cranking the thing sideways, not locking a brake, and just trying to eke as much out as they can.
Number 8 car comes in, the second of the Castrol Commodores, driven by Luke Yilden and Adam Macro. And I'm not sure if this is a scheduled stop. Doors open. There's some chat going on. We're on lap 97.
Yeah, communication problem down here. Adam Macro signalling that he can't hear anything. Obviously, that would be the team radio, so he's called them over to talk about it. Don't know whether it's the team actually weren't aware that he was going to come in, so it was battle stations as the young driver and former Formula 4 champion came on in.
Yeah, this field absolutely littered with former Formula 4 champions, 13 to be precise. As we see Steve Johnson round up the Rod Nash, Tony Ricciardello entry.
It's ironic that Tony's rounding up his old car there, isn't he? And he was actually the fastest man on the last lap. He did a 12.1 this time instead of Russell. It just goes to show that you're only as good as the machinery under you, because you know, Tony's been in this series all year and we've hardly cited him, and not to take anything away from his team with the other car, but trying to crank speed out at a top level is such a difficult, expensive, time-consuming thing.
Same for Thomas as well.
Exactly. All of a sudden they've got good machinery under them, and they're suddenly factors.
Well, I know that you're going to come on board and agree with this statement, but it also proves, whilst we all get caught up in this hype, and it's great to see new young drivers come through, it just shows that age has nothing to do with it. Both those drivers over in their 40s.
Look, it's just down to the individual, whether or not they're hungry and they want it, as Brad Jones comes back in and looks like behind the wall.
Yeah.
That's sad. That is really... I thought finally they were going to get a bit of luck, or more importantly, a good result.
Oh, look at that. We're in a stunning 32nd there. The bottom line is that if you're hungry and you want it and you want it bad, it doesn't matter whether you're 15 or 55. I mean, we saw Brock, for example, go out in his last Bathurst, and he was caning everybody, some of them half his age. I mean, it just depends on whether you want it badly enough.
The Ellery Brabham Super Cheap Autos car is well placed in 7th position and still currently on the lead lap, and there is a long way to go, 61 laps to be precise, as we reach the 100 lap mark. You can see just behind the second Shell Helix Ford is the Deco Rug Karcher Ford of Mark Larkham and Wayne Gardner, and good to see that they're still circulating, although they have lost a truckload of laps earlier in the race. They're only on lap 71, or rather they're on lap 87, so there's something like 12 laps down.
Lee, I don't know my compass points at this circuit, but I do know outside the window here at the moment it's as black as the ace of spades. I wouldn't be surprised in the not too distant future if we got a downpour. It looks really ordinary out there on the horizon.
Well, the forecast was absolute 100% rain storm midday, so I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, look at that.
That's about what it looks like in London each day.
Yeah, you tell you that. It's not as bright as this. We are talking about summer, aren't we? Yeah.
Well, look at this. The Holden Racing Team Commodores effectively bookending the Shell Ford.
Great contest, isn't it? Isn't it fantastic?
Yeah, fantastic.
The two different brands are so evenly matched, and you know, you've got a real sprint race style battle, 2/3 of the way into an endurance race.
It's a lap time consistency. Just watching that gap.
Tony Longhurst.
Look up the inside as they come down to brake for turn 3. He's looking menacing now.
You know, there's a real bump, which I'm sure you probably all mentioned on the way into turn 3 there, a huge bump. The track's subsided in its second year there, and getting the car to ride over it correctly and so that you can keep a strong pedal pressure going in there is quite difficult. And those HRT cars are riding beautifully in there. You can see how much ground Tony was able to take off Junior on that occasion as they went down into 3, just had extra carry speed on the way in.
While these three guys are enjoying their positions in the top 3, Tony Longhurst again has a look up the inside. They can all thank their co-drivers, Jason Bright, particularly with Mark Skaife, who came from 15th right through to 2nd. That was a stunning drive earlier on. Steve Johnson can thank Paul Radisich, and Longhurst can thank Mazira. Those three drivers did a fantastic job in their first stints.
Some bitterly disappointed faces down in the Aussie Mail pit. The reason for that, they have now developed an oil pressure problem. So before they thought it was electrical, they really can't put their finger on just what's caused it. But John Cleland has withdrawn the car. What I want to show you is a little piece of apparatus that the teams will be using between now and lap 120. This is the fuel refilling system. They've got one more stop to do, most of the teams. This is what they call the dead man's lever. They'll pull that. That will engage this gravity-fed system, and the fuel will flow down through this line and up through the filling system, which is placed into the back of the car. It's connected into the fuel tank. There's also a vent filling bottle as well. The fuel flows through here at around about 3.6 litres per second. So given if they pit close to the 120 mark, there's around about 40 laps to go, they can figure out, well, by running this stopwatch, 3.6 litres per second, they'll know exactly how much fuel they'll need by the stopwatch to get them to the end of the line.
I've seen guys rig up a similar configuration to down beer.
Yeah, Bathurst.
Well,
you haven't got any more charming in the UK in the last 12 months.
It hasn't, has it, really? It hasn't improved, you haven't even learned to speak proper like I do.
The top 3 are still hard at it, and there is less than a second separating the 3 of them. Mark Skaife continues to lead this race and is enjoying a clear track ahead. Keep your eyes on the Castrol Commodore, because Russell Ingall is on the surge, and Murphy and Kelly well placed in the top 5. The Bow Wills, Cat Ford is also going strong, but only 2 Fords in that top 6. Ellery and Brabham Carswell, and the second Shell Helix Ford still in the top 8.
Wheel and Lay, Jim Richards and Canto round out the top 10. This is an absorbing contest, the Queensland 500. Back in a moment.
And so it continues, about 0.8 of a second between Skaife and Johnson at the head of the Queensland 500. Great drive from Tony Longhurst, one of the 2 veteran drivers. Mazira, of course, with a great start to the event for that pairing, and the Holden Racing team in good shape. But Russell Ingall is on the attack, slowly but surely working his way through from 4th position. Then Murphy, Wills, Ellery, Ritter. That team, in fact, has just gone into the pits, and likewise, this is the Bernard entry with Matthew White, but more panel damage there. There's been plenty already. They already taped it up, and the right front is in bad shape.
Going to be pressure here, Billy, for Holden Racing team. Keep in mind, this car has not made its compulsory pad change yet, the number 2 Holden Racing team Commodore, so they'll be in there a bit longer than the second stop for Skaife and Bright.
Tony Longhurst will be wanting to get in and out very, very quickly. And here we go. Thomas Mazira, I think, is he getting back in, or was that a crew member? Couldn't quite see. No, Mazira is getting back into the car.
No, I don't think so.
Giving Tony some liquid. Did have his helmet on and was...
I think he's all ready to go, but it looks like Tony's staying in.
The plan, I think, is that Tony will stay in the car. He's just getting some fluids from Thomas at the moment. The reason this stop is taking a little bit longer, car 2 had not had its front brake pads changed. They are changing those pads right now.
Get ready.
Yeah. Over 25 seconds. This is still a pretty decent stop considering they've changed those front brake pads, and Tony Longhurst is back in action.
Did you get a total time on that, Greg?
Just over 30 seconds, Lee, around about the 37-second mark.
Well, that's not too bad, is it, considering the quickest today has been something like 28 seconds by the Shell 18 car, so not too bad for the HRT number 2 machine.
I'm not 100% sure of the way they've got their pit bay mark down there, but it appeared to me as though Tony pulled up well short of the end mark then. If you look at the T's that were on the ground, it was probably a good 4 or 5 feet. That's the sort of thing that can cost additional time when they're, you know, they've got all the gear laid out to go in position in the precise spots.
Well, there's an indicator of how much track position he's lost. He's just in front of his team leader, Mark Skaife, so he's almost dropped an entire lap.
It's a funny feeling when you come back out, Mark, when you do a double stint, when you come back out in the car after you've just done the light stint on it. You put 120 litres in the back of the thing and fresh rubber. It's an unusual combination. The car's so lazy with the weight, but you've got tyre grip back, so you've got to sort of relearn the traits of the car to figure out how to maximise the lap time again.
Mark Skaife hard at work in the number 1 Holden Racing team Commodore. Stephen Johnson tracking him down. An absorbing contest between Ford and Holden. These two cars so evenly matched. Stephen Johnson, tremendously fit in 2001. He really has worked hard on his fitness. He looks so cool inside the car. Just looks like he can punch out these laps all day. 1.3 seconds was the gap. It's out to 1.5 now.
Let's not forget that Stephen Johnson has the best record in 2001 when it comes to endurance racing. If you take into consideration the Clipsal 500, race 1, race 2 and race 3 in Canberra. And look at Russell Ingall. He is on the move. He's up to third now and continuing this push forward. Let's not forget that he and Larry Perkins won the inaugural Queensland 500 in 1999. And here he is, the enforcer, is starting to push hard.
Yeah, he's pulled back 0.9 of a second on Stephen in the last 4 laps. So
he's also got Murphy not too far behind. You could see that Russell was just exiting to turn 3 then, I think it was, and there's Greg in hot pursuit. So Russell's keeping a bit of an eye on the mirror as well because he wants to try and stay out of Murphy's clutches.
Congratulations to Greg Murphy and his partner Monique, because they Monique gave birth to their first child a few weeks ago, Ronan Kevin. So congratulations. And we understand he's a healthy, happy little boy, so well done to them. Simon Wills continues to power on in the Cat Ford.
Greg's using second gear at turn 4, which is a bit of an indication that he's hustling along, but his car balance must be good enough that the rear tyres will take it. So most of the time, if you're going to stroke the car through there, you're probably going to use third preferably, but he's really pushing hard to try and get to Russell late in this stint.
Would have been problems there for John Faulkner.
what do? You sort of short change of second and just stop into third for the...
Yeah, they can be, depending on the torque arrangements in the engine, they can be very lazy and slow off turn 4 in third gear. So you just need second to launch it sometimes. And ideally, if you've got the torque of the engine and the chassis balance right, you've got reasonable tyre grip available to you. You want to get through there in third.
It's been an impressive drive by Queenslander Stephen Ellery in the Super Cheap Autos car team with fellow Gold Coast resident Jeff Brabham. They started 17th earlier today, and they are now up inside the top 6. So that car is still going very well, and that's not a new car either. That's the car that he drove all through last season as well.
Tony Longhurst back into action.
See, Tony's got a full load of fuel, but his last lap was a 1 minute 12 flat, so that just shows you that you know, the rubber's an advantage. Incidentally, Russell did a 12 flat as well. Scaife a 12.1, Johnson a 12.2. Murphy was the slowest of that leading group. He did a 12.5, but that's only a half-second split across the top half dozen or so blokes.
Ingall down to 4.8 now behind Johnson.
Yeah, he just took another 10th out of it that last lap around, so we'll keep our eye on that margin. 4.8 seconds. 4.8 seconds, the gap between Russell Ingall and Mark Scaife. So from leader to third, we take a look back. This is Simon Wills pushing on in 5th, and here is the second DJR car. Greg Ritter behind the wheel, and he is just 1 lap down, in currently in 9th position. Just talking earlier, Neil, about how important it is for these young guys to showcase their talents. Greg hasn't had too many opportunities, although he has been given a couple of runs by the Gary Rogers team over the last year. He's taken this opportunity with Dick Johnson Racing, and he's made the most of it.
Yes, he has, and he's doing very well this weekend. He qualified well, and he's proving to be racing very well. He's in the group, good car, and in a good car he's able to show his skill.
Now, will Leanne Ferrier get back into the Gary Rogers car? No, it doesn't look like it. Paul Dumbrell is doing a satisfactory job in the number 35 machine, and if you've just joined us here on your home of motorsport, we must say this is the sole remaining Valvoline Cummins Commodore. Garth Tander and Jason Bargwanna went out very, very early in this race after some heavy contact between Cameron McConville and he.
It's going to be interesting to see when Scaife and Johnson come in for their final stop. Tony Longhurst is going to be pretty handily placed. He's just completed his second and last stop, so he can go right through to the finish. So the overlap should be interesting, depending on how quickly the Holden Racing Team car and the Shell Ford can get in and out of the pits.
Well, Russell Ingall has taken another half a second out of this guy, Mark Scaife. Scaife, don't get me wrong, he still enjoys a big lead. He's got 1.6 seconds over Stephen Johnson, 4.3 seconds now back to Russell Ingall. And this is getting quite interesting as we get longer and longer into this race. 1:12 of 161. It's been an interesting afternoon here at Willowbank.
You see, talking before about the way you're getting around turns 4 and 5 there, and Mark was using third, and then just eased the car across the road, used all the road. It'll also depend an awful lot on just exactly what...
fires, have a drink.
Quite often the mechanics have to remind the drivers to have a drink, Neil. You get so absorbed in what you're doing.
Team Kiwi car, big understeer on the marbles in turn 1.
The Shell team often say Radisich particularly just forgets to drink, and they've got to keep telling him, drink, Paul, drink, because you're just going to run out of fuel.
You've got to take a little bit frequently rather than a lot in a hurry, because otherwise it feels all hot and slushy in your stomach, which is dreadful. You're just reminding him to check his bars and check his bias. He didn't actually get a chance to grab 60.
Mate, we're probably going to pitch a few laps, so at this stage we'll put Bridie back in, yeah?
Well, there you go. Jason Bright to take over.
Most of these drivers are most unlike you then, Lee. We don't have to remind you to have a drink, do we? These last night.
You can see the steering wheel on this new Holden Racing Team Commodore. It's got all sorts of readouts and buttons and latest technology.
Problems there for Anthony Tratt in the Toll Falcon. It's similar to your situation now with that rubbing rear tyre.
Well, Dick Johnson, a big weekend for you. Not only is Stephen running second, but you had a straight named after you here at the circuit. But the big question is, can Stephen catch Mark Skaife?
Well, we'll just have to wait and see. You know, there's still about 60 laps to go, so, you know, 50-odd laps to go, so it's a fair old lick, and, you know, anything can happen in this game.
My goodness, though, hasn't he come of age in this, and this year particularly?
Yeah, he's done pretty well, you know, but it'd be really nice to see him sort of have a good result here today, which would certainly help his championship hopes.
What about the car itself? Any more pit stops to come from Steve?
Yeah, we got one more pit stop to go, and we'll just wait and see what happens. Whether we put Paul back in or not remains to be seen, but, you know, just looking from here, I'd say Paul's going to get back in. He's looking pretty happy about it too.
Fingers crossed, Dick. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, mate.
Jason Bright and the team on standby here at the Holden Racing Team waiting for Mark Skaife. This will give you an idea of the sort of data that the Holden Racing Team are keeping an eye on during the course of the race. They're on the net here, logged into the Bureau of Meteorology here in Australia. You can see this blue patch here. That is moving. It's around about 50 k's out from the Amberley Airbase, which is just up the road. So there is the possibility of a storm before the end of this race.
Could make it nice and interesting, huh?
Whoa. As if it's not interesting enough, here comes car one. So Mark Skaife, the race leader, comes into pit lane.
You heard Jeff Gregg, team manager, say, or it could have been Robbie Starr actually on the radio, say to Mark Skaife, now we're probably going to put Bridie in, hey? And it looks like Mark is loosening the belts.
Yep. Didn't hear the response from Mark Skaife due to radio interference, but it looks like he's getting ready to jump out. And Jason Bright taken through to the flag.
Yeah, it's pretty humid out there, and Jason's going to be fresh.
This is a different strategy to car two. They are not going to have to do a change of front brake pads here. That's already been done for car one. Mark Skaife is out. Jason Bright getting in. We'll see how long it takes them here to put the fuel in. The tyres are already done. This will give us an idea of how much fuel is required to get them to the finish. 17 seconds gone so far. Bridie is strapped in. Ready to go. 24 seconds. That's a good stop.
Very slick stop from the Holden Racing Team. Well drilled, but we hear that the
nice and easy, mate. You're in a good position.
He took a little bit of time, Mark, to just fumble the belts in. He grabbed it, lost it on the left side around his hip, and then grabbed it again.
Here comes the 7E car. So pressure's on these crews. 24 seconds.
Loosen your belts, disconnect your radio, and adjust the steering wheel.
The instructions being given to Stephen Johnson. Paul Radisich, the Rat, is getting set to jump back in the 17 Ford.
They must have a column height adjustment.
They do, yeah. I was just going to say they've got a seat adjustment and a column height adjustment.
The other thing you need to do after the stop is reset the anti-roll bars in the car and also reset the brake bias, because obviously you've got a heavy fuel load over the rear.
Watch this. Johnson has already got out. Now watch Paul Radisich. He'll pull the seat up to his position. There he goes. Whoa. And the steering wheel has already been locked into position for Paul. So it's a great bit of engineering by the team.
It's a high chair.
Yeah, high chair for Paul. So it looks like a slick stop on the Monroe pit stop clock. He's got out about 3-4 seconds faster than HRT.
It was a good-looking stop.
So very slick work by the Shell team. Well in contention for this battle. Now what I want to see is where Tony Longhurst is ending up in all this.
I feel like he's going to come out in front of Jason.
So he's come out in the lead. And the Ford fans go wild.
He's on cold tyres. Jason's on hot tyres. So that'll mean that Bridie can pull right up under brakes down into turn 3. It'll be close, and Paul's going to have to block down the inside here to stop the run.
And if anyone's going to block, it's going to be the Rat. Well, Experienced in hand-to-hand combat. You can see the Holden Racing Team car closing in under brakes into turn 3.
Right on the inside.
Radicic, though, getting himself into gear as fast as he can. Got to get those tyres up to temperature. He's got a full tank of gas.
Very easy to lock a brake in this sort of pressurised situation, particularly the inside front. So the best thing to do is drive down the inside.
It's not the sort of situation that sort of a young gun would want to be in, is it, really?
I think it's a good situation for anybody. Don't think it matters how old you are.
Russell Ingall takes over as race leader. Greg Murphy in second. Stephen Ellery in third. All those drivers are yet to make their second stop. So this is effectively the battle for the lead by the time those second stops are out of the way.
Paul Radicic has run wide. He made a little bit of a mistake there. Jason Bright was unable to get through, but this is it. They are currently 4th and 5th on the road, but really battling for the lead. Paul Radicic, it was similar situation many laps ago, earlier today here at Willowbank, when he saw Jason Bright just reeling him in from 15th to second, and he locks up again, the Rat. He'll have to make it a little tidier than that. Jason Bright will be watching this and waiting to make his move.
Corner exit speed will be down a little bit in the Shell Falcon now, turn 2, so that'll hurt. But he's actually okay now. Like, he'll have tyre temperatures starting to come up, pressures will start to come up. So he does have the luxury, if you like, of controlling where he wants to be and controlling Jason to some extent.
Can you imagine what the final laps of the Queensland 500 are going to be like if these two stay locked together like this to the end? There's no reason why they shouldn't, unless mechanical failure or a problem lapping a slower car intervenes. This is the most thrilling Queensland 500 race we've ever seen, and one of the most thrilling in V8 supercar history. What a battle.
And because he's on a full load, Jason's using second gear there in 4th gear, just trying to keep in touch with the Shell car, so he has to push hard.
So Radicic now starting to get into the groove, getting his brake balance right, getting his tyre temperatures right, getting himself comfortable in the car. This is one of the most important drives he's ever going to put in. His teammate Stephen Johnson, 314 points behind championship leader Mark Skaife coming into this round. 360 points available for a win. The Shell Championship is hanging in the balance.
And for the other teams, time is running out for that fuel. The fuel window is closing. Lap 118 of 161. The fuel window closes at lap 120.
Just goes to show how important something as simple as just fitting your seatbelt can be.
Yeah.
I mean, for Jason, he had to have that extra grab. It's all it took was that extra grab. It added maybe 2-3 seconds, and it's enough to change positions.
Neil, you talk about coming out of one of the turns just off the power in 3rd gear. What is off the power? How low down the rev range would it be?
If you sort of, it's this corner here, turn 4. If you sort of stroke it through there in 3rd gear, it's well down in the power range.
Well, number-wise,
high 4s, low 5s.
Yeah, okay, right.
Something we should make mention of is Greg Murphy, who's right in behind Jason Bright there. He's come out after his final stop. Brilliant work by the Kmart team. Look at this. He's right in the battle for outright contention. Up the inside. He's done it too.
Done it.
Side by side out of turn 6. Can you believe this? The two TWR Australia Commodores, door handle to door handle. Oh, the touch between them two. Murphy doesn't want to give in. They want to argue. 220 kilometres an hour down the main straight, braking hard for turn 1.
Done it.
And Murphy sneaks up the inside.
Great drive, Greg Murphy. The Kmart Commodore is there, the sole remaining Kmart Commodore. They had a disastrous start when Rick Kelly, the car, would not go, and they pulled off before the lights even went green. And now the sister car, the combination of Todd Kelly and Greg Murphy.
This is fantastic for Paul Radicic. Watching these two Holdens get caught up in their own battle. That's going to allow him to a little bit of breathing space, see if he can open up a bit of a gap. So Greg Murphy, almost out of nowhere, the team just hovering around in that top 5. Slick work by the team to get him out in that position.
Where's the smoke coming from on Greg's car? Has he got some
rear
damage
left,
there on the left rear?
So just a little bit of a body rub there. You can see the bit of body work flapping in the breeze. So Greg Murphy,
his pace looks pretty frantic, doesn't it? I'd say that he's going to get all over the back of Johnson pretty quickly, Radicic pretty quickly.
This is from the rear of the Kmart Commodore, looking back at Jason Bright.
Stephen Johnson, this is anxious times for you while the battle's going on between Greg Murphy and Jason Bright. It's at least helping, Paul.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the name of the game. You know, we really got to press on from here. I think we can. I mean, we've got a very good car, but so have they. And really, it's very line ball out there. I mean, I was pushing as hard as I could, and so was Skaife. I could see his car moving around a lot. Some laps I'd catch, some laps he'd pull away. There's nothing in it. So it's going to come down to traffic and who got out of the pits first, and that was us.
Slick effort today in the pits from you guys.
Absolutely. I mean, we've copped a lot of flack from our pit stops in recent times, and, you know, there's no effort spared by these guys.
Here's hoping, Steve.
Thanks, mate.
Russell Ingall, a race leader, is into pit lane for his final stop. Watch the Monroe pit stop clock in the left hand of your screen. Stopwatches. 16.9 seconds. So,
Good outlap, Russ. You've got to have a good outlap.
doesn't look like they... I wonder what the fuel strategy is here. He's lap 100 and 120, so they obviously didn't have to put a full tank of fuel in to get him into the finish.
Yeah, we're talking about leaving it to the last minute. Lap 20 is where the fuel window ends. And look where he's coming out. Coming out in a very good position, Russell Ingall. Nice work. He is position one indeed, because he's come out ahead of Paul Radisich and Greg Murphy. So the Enforcer leads on lap 121. There's 40 to go. Can he make it 2 times out of 3 years?
He's got to be so careful on cold tyres, though, hasn't he, with everybody right up behind him.
Oh, he'll be right. There was a smart bit of tactics by Perkins, and they held him out that long so that his final fuel fill was shorter than a full tank. That's well positioned. Oh, he gets very sideways. Just on cold tyres, the car proving difficult.
That's it.
Paul Radisich up the inside. And rather Radisich has come on through. So nice move there. And around. Greg Murphy as well slots through. So continuing on.
Oh, this
what
car
a
eight.
fascinating battle.
That's the old cold tyre thing.
So 121 and 161, and the Macro Yulden car was being swamped there. Look at this.
Look at this.
And it's run wide, just went in there too hot, and it's allowed Radisich to get through. Meanwhile, the sister car leads the way further up the road. Both sister cars were passing each other.
Incredible.
The Shell cars were overtaking the Castrol cars, and we get back to it. Radisich begins the hunt, locks it up. After Russell Ingall, this is 3rd place. Greg Murphy, this one is going to go right down to lap 161. That smoke's still coming from the rear of the Kmart Commodore, but the Enforcer leads the way by some almost 3.5 seconds. Murphy sits 3rd from Bright, and then Longhurst in the top 5. And the rain is coming here at Willowbank. If you thought it was action-packed, it could get even more so.
It's getting very dark here. Ritter and Stokel, Mackerel, Yulden, Richards, Morrison, Neal, McDougall, Madecki, and you can see these cars are now 2 laps down or more.
Further back to the guys who have had a lot of trouble in this race. We'll return to Willowbank right after this.
Well, have you ever met a driver like Russell Ingall before? Race leader, smart pit stop by Castrol Perkins, and Radisich is 2nd, though. The top 4 drivers within 7 seconds in the Queensland 500. You can't ask for much better than that on lap 125 of 161.
Billy, I tell you how much that he wants this win and Larry Perkins want this win. The last time the Castrol Perkins outfit won a round of the Shell Championship Series was this very race 2 years ago.
Yeah, both Larry and Russell have not tasted the top spot of the podium for 2 years. And what a great fight back. This brand new Castrol Commodore was fast straight out of the box. 4.2 seconds the gap, and there it is. Paul Radisich in 2nd, Greg Murphy in 3rd, Jason Bright still in 4th place.
Well, we couldn't have asked for a better race so far, could we? It's been... Oh, no, the end of it.
Marcus Ambrose.
What a turbulent weekend, eh?
Oh. Just amazing, isn't it, how you can be...
Guys, climbing out of the car.
Never rains, but it pours.
Been a fucking disaster.
Wow.
Well, we would agree to that, I suppose.
Yeah.
Paul Forgy, his chief mechanic, probably getting a little emotional, as you would be in this situation.
Murphy, Bright, Longhurst, the top 5. We've got the top 8 cars on the lead lap, and that's a sorry sight. The Pertec Ford up against the wall. Our pole sitter, Marcus Ambrose, who was just looking so forward to this race. It's ended in rather unsatisfactory style.
Larry Perkins, Russell Ingall is in the lead. It's only a slender margin. How are you feeling right now?
Well, when it's still running and you're in the lead, you know, you're obviously feeling pretty good, but, you know, I'm very realistic enough to know that it ain't over yet, and never over till the first car's done 162 laps.
It's familiar territory, though, of course. You've won it before, but that was a fantastic strategy there and a good pit stop.
It was an excellent pit stop, and we certainly very rarely do you get a gift of 7 or 8 seconds, and we got one then, and yeah, we've made the most of it.
Be nice to be back on the podium again.
Oh, well, let's not count our chickens lads.
Okay, always coy. Thank you very much, and good luck to you towards the end of the race.
Oh, thank you.
He's a great character, Larry Perkins, 51 years of age. Originally from Cowangi, out in the Silotown district of the Mallee area of Victoria. And a man who really has done an amazing job. Self-taught engineer. He's raced all over the world at the highest levels, as high as Formula One, before returning to Australia and becoming one of our most prominent and successful touring car racers and car constructors.
He's got a great sense of humour, Larry. He's dry and full of emotion. Then, well, I don't know.
I'm just about to say that I've been away for 2 years. Glad to see he hasn't changed.
He comes out with some great one-liners, Larry. You've got to admit it.
Just look at that smoke pumping from the back of that Kmart car.
Doesn't seem bad enough to be really hampering it all that much, though, does it?
It's certainly not slowing him down.
Plenty of nerves down here in the Kmart racing pit. Todd Kelly, has there been much chewing of the nails?
Certainly has. The car's actually got very good speed and it's looking after the tyres, but in the last 15 or 20 laps it's developed a bit of an oil leak and it's blowing a fair bit of smoke, so everyone in the pits here is quite nervous at the moment because we're in a pretty good position.
Been a tough week off track for this team. Be nice to have a good result, wouldn't it?
Certainly would. We really need the points at the moment, so I hope it hangs together.
Well done, Todd. Hope it goes well.
Thank you.
Guys, as I throw back to you, just very quickly, an eerie sensation down here in pit lane at the moment. Those black clouds are getting ever so closer and the temperature feels like it's going down as well.
Well, we've just had word from race control and they've been informed that this thunderstorm, there's lightning on the horizon and this storm is around about 30 minutes away. Lap one,
there she is.
Lap 129 of 161.
Wow.
So
Bit of the old cumulus nimbus.
I'll tell you what, if you do get a big blast of rain right at the end and everyone's out on slick tyres, I wouldn't be surprised if they red flag the race. They've completed 75% of the race distance. They can do that. And that'll be a controversial circumstance, particularly with 360 Shell Championship points on offer. This is an absolutely critical round. Ever since they introduced the double point system, the championship really does hang in the balance on these 3 or 4 double point races. You can see that oil leak just belching from the back of the Kmart Commodore. Everyone in the team will have their fingers crossed the car will make the distance.
Well, this is the reason why we have Nigel Greenway, our statistician. There's 32 laps to go at 1 minute 11 a lap. There's around about 36 minutes to go. I wouldn't leave that one up to you, Baz, that calculation.
Absolutely,
but we could have rain. There's the wet weather tyres you can see there. It's just a standard 1 tyre, 1 compound. That's it. It's a control wet weather tyre as well from Bridgestone.
If you look through, you can see lock up there. You see the discs glowing. That last lap, the front discs glowing bright red.
That could be difficult for him. When you look where that oil's coming from, it could be a portion of that getting on his left rear tyre, and that gets a lot of work around here. Under power and taking a lot of cornering load. Chuck a little bit of oil into the bargain. Could make it very, very tricky for Merckx.
Todd Kelly was very frustrated after his 1-lap dash in the top 15 shootout yesterday, but this team have really rebounded very, very well, and they're one of the strongest driver combinations in the field. Greg Murphy, the 2 times Bathurst winner, 2 times Sandown 500 winner.
To the disc, sorry.
And young Todd Kelly, who is a real rising star. So they're a very strong combination. And sitting nicely in 3rd position at the moment. Jason Wright cannot seem to do anything about him. He's some 2 seconds in arrears of this car. It's been a great day's racing at Willowbank for the VIP Pet Foods Queensland 500, and it is a long way from over. Will we get some rain before lap 161? We'll have to wait and see. We'll answer that question on the other side of this break.
Seemingly only minutes away, and we've seen some massive flashes of lightning in among those dark clouds building on the horizon. Now Russell Ingall leads the Queensland 500 by 4.15 seconds. The top 4 teams, or cars I should say, are still within 7 seconds of each other. Good lap times from Ingall. In fact, on the last lap, just a shade ahead of Paul Radicic, who's chasing him. Radicic, incidentally, the only Ford in that top 4, and possibly the only Ford, the first to get on the podium in the history of this race, which admittedly is only going to be 3 years old at the end of this event. But still, Ford have had trouble here, in spite of the fact that they've been pretty quick in qualifying, etc. But in terms of race speed,
they've never won a race here, Bill, even though this is the home test track for a lot of these Queensland Ford teams. So they really are hungry for success here.
Credit to Castrol Perkins to see just how strong they are. We mentioned earlier that it's been 2 years for a round win for Larry or Russell, but it's been a win not so long ago for Russell. Race 1 Hidden Valley this year, and he's hoping to make it number 2.
Just on that matter of rain, you can see the dark clouds over there behind me, but I can tell you someone who is praying for rain, and that's Bridgestone. They have 1,000 wet tyres they want to give away before they lose the tyre contract to Dunlop next year. But with me right now, I do have Ross Stone. Ross, what a reversal of fortune for you guys. Of course, you had the 2 front positions, and it really just has turned to the worst, hasn't it, today?
Yeah, some days you have days like that, you know. You learn a lot. You learn a lot from it, but you'd sooner forget about it and get on with it. But the potential's there. We've just got to turn that around, and I'm sure we'll be right.
What did you do? Did you run over a black cat?
No. You always, we're big believers in you work hard, and the harder you work, the luckier you get. We've just got to get our head down and regroup. We'll be right.
Obviously, Marcus and David are still punching in the numbers. The car has always been quick, but it just didn't quite come together.
Yeah, and generally they're usually quite strong, you know, because you get to know how they finish a race. You know, whether some of the other shorter races, whether they would just scrape through or whether they would have done the whole weekend again without any maintenance. And generally we'd be pretty happy with the way things were going. Just some days, you know, it goes against you. And the problem with our business is you do it in public.
You certainly do. The next one we go to, or soon we do go to Mount Panorama, the big one for the 1,000. Is that where it might change?
Yeah, I know, and that's coming around pretty quick, so that's one we've got to have it right for sure.
Well, we'll keep your chin up, and we look forward to that event.
Yeah, we'll be good. Thanks.
Well,
thanks, Ross.
When you take today's result into account, that old saying, some days are diamonds and some days are stones, it's pretty appropriate.
More like a rock.
3.9 seconds, the gap between race leader Russell Ingall and Paul Radisich in hot pursuit in the Shell Ford. And I cannot believe how fast these lap times are this late in the day. 135 laps of this 161 lap grind, and they're still punching out low 1 minute 12 second lap times. Quite incredible.
And as the years go on and this Shell Championship Series grows in age and V8 supercars grow in age, still not much changes. There's only a handful of teams that you can bank on when it comes around to the endurance races, and this team is one of them.
Quite incredible. You remember when they won Bathurst a couple of years ago? That's remember what Larry said? Oh, some teams spend money on palm trees in the pits and that. He's a classic of it.
Well, they had a real blip in the statistics last year when they had a component supplier from the United States.
Oh, yeah.
Let them down, and they had all sorts of engine trouble.
Well, that was that was the Rockers, wasn't it?
At Mount Panorama, yeah. So it was a real reversal of form there, but it looks like they've really got the engineering handle back, and the car is doing an absolutely superb job. Russell Ingall, so good to see the Enforcer back in a competitive position. Had a disastrous Shell Championship Series last year, and now he's right in the thick of things. He really wants to take the battle down to the wire.
Here's Matt Neal. He's been soldiering on ever since taking over from the sick Paul Morris, and it looked like David Bernard just pulling off the side of the circuit. So perhaps to the two Stone Brothers cars could be out. And he's down to 12, and he's getting instructions. There's something wrong.
Oh dear.
Desperately wrong with the car.
Oh,
and there's
flat.
Yeah. So what a nightmare of a day for both Stone Brothers cars. And
it is the flat tyre, not keep going. It is a flat tyre, not a loose tyre. So keep going if you can.
Good instructions from the pits.
Yeah,
Let's not forget
really.
that there's points. Points are paid all the way down to 32nd position, and someone who will get, a team who will get points. And I can update you, we did earlier think that they were out of the race. They've fixed the problem and soldiered on, and that is the second Gary Rogers Valvoline Cummins car of Jason Bargwanna and Garth Tander. They're in 18th position, 10 laps off the lead.
And David Bernard just limped this around the pit lane. You just see the damage there. The wheel is now starting to wobble. Hopefully that'll stay on. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, it doesn't look that hot.
Slow it down, David. Slow it down.
Oh.
Slow it down.
Ross Stone on the headset. Slow it down, David. So hopefully he can bring this back into pit lane without any more damage to the Haviland car. It's been a disastrous weekend for the Stone Brothers team after such a brilliant start in qualifying. But as so many drivers said in the press conference yesterday afternoon, qualifying is 5% of the job, the 95% comes on Sunday.
He's going to have fun and games getting around the next right-hander.
And that tyre may have come back onto the track too, because it had a fair bit of momentum as he flicked it off. It was coming back onto the circuit. So Banana's okay now. He's made it into that pit lane entry. And he will cruise on down at a much slower rate. Lap 138 of 161. We're winding it down here at Willowbank.
So grinding away that.
Did you hear what I just heard?
No,
we're not going to get this car back out. Is that what they said?
It sounded something back out. I didn't.
Or maybe we'll put a new wheel and we'll get you back out. We'll see soon enough.
The Stone Brothers don't give in that easily.
Oh,
yep.
Look at...
Take for this, please. Take for this.
Oh, look at this. There's another one.
That's the Mick Donoher Leighton Cranbrook car.
Yeah, he's had terrible problems with his wheels. That's a couple of times he's lost tyres. The right-hand side has made a problem purely because of contact on David Bernard's car. But this time, a left tyre. I don't know what for. He's been running off the track a fair bit, using full usage of the whole track to try and maximise his times and make up for lost ground. But he opens the door. He hasn't climbed out. Looks like he is going to go back out. Bit of front damage to the front bar also. But this horror weekend for David Bernard and the rest of the Stone Brothers team continues.
See what's happened here. The under tray under that spoiler's been ground off by that trip around the circuit with it rubbing against the road surface. Now they're just trying to tape up that under tray. It has quite a critical effect on the performance of the car, particularly the front end grip. And there's the tyre.
Oh, there's the tyre.
Sitting well and truly on the racetrack. So will we have a safety car to remove that? Only time will tell.
You can see some clouds off to the distance here. We've been talking about them over the last 20 laps or so. To give you an idea, that cloud cover is between turns 2 and turn 3. And from our position here on pit wall, it looks as though the rain is only a couple of kilometres away and inching further or closer to the track by the moment.
21 laps to go here at the VIP Pet Foods Queensland 500, but one thing that has not changed is this guy, Russell Engel, the enforcer, leads the way for he and Larry Perkins. The Rat is in pursuit, but he's some 4 seconds in arrears from Greg Murphy, who's soldiering on with that oil leak. Scaife Bright combination is sitting in the top 4. They can't seem to do anything about the Castrol Perkins car up front. More of the Queensland 500 real soon.